Hi, welcome back to A Moment with Marta. So I want to continue on our behavior series. Last video we talked about just identifying the antecedent, what happened prior to the behavior, whatever it was, whether it's screaming, whether it's aggression, property destruction, whatever the behavior is, trying to identify what is happening right before that behavior and what's the natural consequence that's occurring after. So let's say you have a child that screams and you've pinpointed that the antecedent was a light switch was being turned on. So the light switch was turned on, the child screams. The natural consequence, once you know that the light is bothering your child, is perhaps to turn it back off, to maybe have some dimmer lighting for in the room. Being able to gather that data helps you to identify how best to support your child, whether it's your child at home or a student in your classroom. If you're working as a therapist, you can gather data on any of these types of behaviors. So now I want to take it a step further, and I want to talk about how to collect data for the precursors to more severe behaviors. So severe behaviors being self-injurious behaviors, property destruction, aggression, any of those kinds of things. What you can do is create a chart, something like this. It doesn't have to be fancy. You can do it with a notebook. You could do it on the computer with a spreadsheet. Really simple. So for the point of this exercise, we're going to focus on headbanging as a self-injurious behavior. And let's say that you have a child that is headbanging. You want to gather 10 instances of the headbanging, and you want to observe what are the precursor behaviors that are happening right before they bang their head. And you can do this with any kind of severe behavior, whether it's property destruction or aggression, scratching, biting, any of those kinds of things. There's going to be behaviors that are occurring prior to that more aggressive or harmful severe behavior. So let's say, for example, as we're looking at our data sheet, I observe that a child screams right before banging his head. So I would just write screaming. Okay, and then I would check in number 1. So I would just do something like that. So let's say that I observed in this first period, I observed screaming, rocking, and vocalizations of some kind, whether it's saying, I don't want to do that, or being contrary in some way, vocalizing some way that they don't want to do whatever it is, that they don't like it, they're telling you off, whatever the vocalization is. Let's just say vocalization, and that's what that will mean. So let's say that that's what I observed for the first instance. So I would mark that down. Now, in my next time that I see it happen, I'm going to keep in mind, I'm going to be looking for screaming, rocking, vocalizations, and I'll check them off if I see them for number 2. Let's say that they're still screaming, there's still vocalization, and I also notice that there's clenched fists. So I'm going to write that down, and then I'm going to check it off in 2. So as you see, I see 3 here, I see 3 there. I'm adding in that new one as I'm seeing it. So we're gonna just keep going like that. Let's say that we see crying with the next instance. So I see screaming, I have vocalizations, and I have crying. I don't have clenched fists this next time, so I just check off what I see. And if you need to record it, try to do it clandestinely. We always want to give our kiddos and our students dignity, but if you're able to record it, then you can kind of go back and look at those precursor behaviors, and you can kind of recall what exactly you saw. Did they roll their eyes? Did they clench their fists? Was there a humming noise or something else that was done just prior? So let's say that, in our fourth time, we see rocking, we see a vocalization, there's crying, and then maybe there's some, flopping on the floor. Let's try that. So anything new, we're going to write in on here, and we're going to just track it. So you can see this doesn't happen for the first 3 instances, not till the 4th does flopping on the floor happen. However, we've had screaming, we've had vocalizations, we've had crying. So we're going to just keep tracking all of those things. And then as we get to our 10 recorded data collection, then you're going to look for the things that line up the most. With 10, you want to look at 8 out of 10 times. You want to have at least 80%, and that will be a true precursor. So we've obviously only done 4. Let's say if you had 5, it would be like 4 out of 5. So let's go ahead and let's do one more. Let's say that we see screaming, we see vocalization, and then we also see maybe rolling his eyes. So we see that for the 5th one. Now, you're not necessarily going to see a new thing every single time, but there are going to be some things that maybe happen just not consistently. Like maybe they flop on the floor sometimes prior to headbanging or self-injurious behavior or property destruction or aggression, but they don't do it consistently. So then what we can do, so let's just say we're going to stop here. So for 5 instances, we're going to look at 4 out of 5 would be what we would want. So I'm just going to basically take a ruler, and I'm going to see how many times did I see screaming in the 4 out of 5 in the 5 instances. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 instances of screaming. For rocking, I've got 2. For vocalizations, I have 5. Clenched fists, I see 1. Crying, there's 2. Flopping on the floor, there's 1. Eye roll, there's 1. So here's just an idea of how you can gather the data for what's happening prior to that more severe behavior. So clearly, I have 4 instances of screaming. I have 5 instances of vocalizations. So those are my 2 precursors that are going to happen consistently prior to the headbanging in this case. And again, you can do it for if it's another kind of self-injurious behavior like biting, scratching, hair pulling, any of that kind of stuff. You decide, okay, what am I seeing in my child? Maybe it's several things, and maybe you lump headbanging, hair pulling, and scratching together as your top concerns for self-injurious behaviors, or it's just aggression, or it's property destruction. And property destruction can be throwing it in order to try to break it. It can be trying to rip it, trying to bite it. So you just decide what it is that you're concerned with, what you want to collect data for, And you're going to just chart it like this. You're going to look at each behavior. You're going to break down, what is it that I'm seeing? Okay, he's rolling his eyes consistently before he says, I don't want to do this, and then rips up the paper. So rolling eyes and vocalization would be what you would mark down for, say, a property destruction data collection. And that's just kind of what you would write here. And again, this was simple. I did this on a notebook. You can do it very simply this way. You can be, more technology savvy and use the computer and track it that way on there, or use your phone and write it in notes. But at any rate, you're able to track what those behaviors are. And once you know what the precursor behaviors are, in this instance, it's screaming and it's vocalization. So now that I know screaming and vocalizations happen prior to headbanging, I can come up with a treatment plan that helps me to work through with this child on the screaming and the vocalization. We can work on trying to prevent those behaviors, which then will in turn prevent the more severe behavior of the headbanging. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. It's just trying to show you how you can collect your own data. You don't have to be a certified, behavior analyst to be able to collect data. You can do this easily at home. You can do this easily at school, and help these students and help these children that are struggling, and figure out maybe what's causing their struggles and what are things that we can work on to prevent us escalating to this point. So that's it for today on A Moment with Marta. I hope that you enjoy this behavior series, and we'll pick it up again next time. Thanks. Bye.